Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of our awesome workshops. My name is Luciana Fortes, and I'll be your host for the day. Today, we're going to talk about how to build a VR bowling game. If you're here already, definitely drop a line in the chat. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. I'm currently in Vancouver, and it's 12 p.m. my time. But what about you guys? Definitely let me know, and let me know if you can hear me and see me all right. Oh, amazing. We have George from LA, Sebastian from Boston, Christopher from London. Oh, Jordan from the UK as well. I love it. We always have a super international crowd, and it's really exciting. Ooh, Charbel from Lebanon. Hello. Rita from Lebanon as well. Georgie, Germany, it's 9 p.m. So maybe you're having, maybe a glass of wine, or maybe, some tea before going to bed. Oh, hello, Darren. Hi, it's good to see you again. And of course, Usman from Calgary. Awesome, awesome. It's amazing. Carol from Missouri. Amazing. I love seeing where everybody's from. It just makes us feel a lot more connected, especially with, everything going on nowadays. So it's great to be able to share this moment with you guys. Okay, so we have a great workshop for you all today. As I said, Usman is gonna teach you guys how to build a VR bowling game and how to apply game development to the principles of a VR environment. So it should be pretty exciting. I have just a couple of housekeeping items before we start. So as you all can see, you're familiar with the chat function. So definitely continue to engage via the chat throughout the workshop. Perhaps you can drop your LinkedIn profile and start to network with the other people who are here. That's always awesome. We have this great emoji function as well. So if you're feeling up for it, definitely send us emojis. I love seeing them pop up on the screen. Yes, more. I see them already. Amazing. Thanks. It makes me happy, so I hope it makes you happy as well. Awesome. So, and then if you go up to the right, you'll see another tab that's called questions. So if you have questions during the workshop, definitely drop them there. And then that way, when we get to the Q&A at the end of the workshop, they'll be a lot more organized. Yes, so this will be recorded. We're gonna be sending all of the recordings as well as the project files and all of the information to your email. So if you need to, drop out in the middle of the workshop for some reason, don't worry, because you're going to get all of it at the end. And then you'll be able to go through the workshop on your own, go through the project on your own after the workshop is done as well. So anyways, just going back to that questions tab, be sure to write your questions there, then we'll get to it at the end. And then the cool thing too is you can vote on your favorite questions and they'll get answered first. And then to the right of the questions tab, you'll see the polls tab. So I'm going to be launching 2 polls today, very quick. I'll let you know once they're launched. And then if you could just go over there and put in your vote, that would be great. All right, everybody. So without further ado, let's get things started. All right, so what can you expect for the day? So I'm going to start off with a very brief introduction about who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to invite Usman up on stage, and he's going to take you into a VR deep dive, which is a technical portion of our workshop. And then I'll come back and wrap up with a couple of resources, and then we'll head straight into the Q&A session. As I mentioned, the recording will be sent to all of the registrants, and the project files and resources will also be emailed to all of you. All right, so a little bit about us before we get started. So as I mentioned, my name is Luciana Fortes, but you can call me Lucy. I'm the Student Experience Coordinator here at CircuitStream, and this is actually my 5th week here. So as some of you all, I'm also fresh. I'm also a newbie here. So it's great to be in this journey with everyone. So a little background about me. I've worked in education for over 7 years in university prep and student experience, but both of my degrees are in dance. And a fun fact about me is that in 2016, I danced in the opening ceremony of the Rio 2016 Paralympic Games, because I'm originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And then we also have our expert of the day, Usman Mir, but he goes by Ozzy, so everybody can call him Ozzy. Ozzy is one of our lead instructors as well as an XR developer. He's been working for over 14 years with Unity, has over 14 years of Unity experience, and over 7 years of XR development. And a fun fact about Ozzy is that he plays drums in a jazz band. So definitely ask him to show all of his like instruments. It's really cool. So he can do that later on. All right, so a little bit about us and what we do. So Circuit Stream was founded in 2015 when we noticed a gap in the education world in terms of training the next generation of XR professionals and enthusiasts. So at the core, we're really an education company. Since then, we're really proud to say that we've trained over 35,000 individuals, which is pretty exciting. I always like saying that number. And another thing about us too, as our students, we're also a pretty international, and global team of over 20 individuals with diverse backgrounds and experiences, but with one thing in common, and that's to train the next set of XR professionals. We're also proud to say that we're a Unity certified training partner. So training partners are approved based on their expertise, focus on quality education, and commitment to providing the highest level of training available. Another interesting fact as well is that Unity covers over 60% of the market, so that's pretty exciting. These are just some of the students that we've had the pleasure to train over the years. We have some really big companies here, and we're just really excited to train the next set of XR professionals. Okay, so how do we actually provide all of our training? So in addition to our free workshops, which we offer on a regular basis, we also have a couple of academic offerings. I'll just go through these pretty quickly right now, just so you guys have a sense and some context, but I'll be sure to go back to these courses at the end of the workshop as well, and I'll give some more details, so don't worry about writing anything down at the moment. So we have two flagship courses. We have our XR Development with Unity course. It's 10 weeks long, 40 hours of instruction, and this is a beginner level course, so you don't need any sort of Unity or programming experience. And then we also have our XR Project Accelerator, which is our advanced course, and that's more based on a capstone project. It's almost just as long, 8 weeks, but still 40 hours of instruction. And then we're really excited about this course as well. So it's very fresh. We just launched it last week. It's our Interaction Design and Prototyping for XR course. So this came after a lot of demand from our students. The first cohort will be on June 14th. It's also 10 weeks long, 40 hours of instruction. Steph is awesome in just dropping the link there in the chat if you'd like more info on it. And alums get 50% off, but I'm going to talk more about this discount at the end. And then in addition to these courses, we also have a shorter course, which is based on C# programming language for Unity, and that's 3 weeks long. Yes, emojis, definitely send more our way. One of the things we're really proud to offer as well is one-on-one support and mentorship. So in addition to the live classes with a group of, with your classmates and feeling like everybody is on the same page, you also get a chance to work on your own personal projects through one-on-one support and mentorship with an industry expert. So you really get the best of both worlds. We also offer team training to educators and businesses through customized plans. And so if this is something that you're interested in, don't worry, because at the end, I'm going to share the contact info of our admissions team, and they can give you more info on that. All right, so let's get down to business. You know that song? Anyways, let's get down to what you're going to learn today. So you're going to learn how Unity is used to build virtual reality games and apps, how to set up a project in Unity, how to throw objects in VR, how to implement and manipulate physics in VR, and how to create basic interactions in VR. And what are you going to leave with? So you're going to leave with your own VR bowling game blueprint process, along with the assets used in the workshop. An understanding of how to set up a VR environment in Unity, knowledge on how to operate with basic interactions, and answers to your questions around AR, VR development from Ozzy. So we're going to do a Q&A session right at the end. All right, so one of the big parts about this workshop is going to be Unity. So one of the things that we always like to ask everyone is, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being you've never heard of Unity before, and 10 being you're the master of Unity, what is your experience with Unity? Just so we can have a sense of where everybody's coming from and really cater a workshop to whoever is present. So I'm going to go ahead and actually launch a poll. So don't send your votes just yet, but I love that you guys are really ready to go. All right, and I've published the poll. So go ahead and vote up in the polls tab to the right. It's right beside the questions tab. And let's get a sense here of where everybody is at. All right, so I see a couple of 6s, okay. A couple of 3s, 2s, mostly 3s and 2s. A couple of 6s, so you guys are gonna feel pretty comfortable. But it looks like the majority is beginner, so that's great. You'll do just fine because we're going to be walking through everything that Unity is. All right, so what is Unity? So Unity is a free 3D let's go back. So Unity is a free 3D development engine for building games, simulations, and experiences. It's the easiest way to begin making apps for XR, which means extended reality. And that's just a fancy umbrella term for AR, augmented reality, VR, virtual reality, and MR, mixed reality. So how do you actually go about creating an app in Unity? It all starts with, first of all, your genius idea, and then you take it to an engine like Unity and you start to build it, and then you push it out to one of these 3 SDKs, such as Oculus, Steam VR, and Microsoft HoloLens, and then you push it out to one of the 3 devices that it's compatible with. All right, so enough about chit chat. Let's get this show on the road. I'm going to invite our expert of the day, Ozzy, to the stage, and he's going to take it away. Hey, Ozzy.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Your audio is just a tiny bit low.
Okay. How about now?
It's still a bit low for me. I wonder if it's the case for everybody else.
Thanks, Jordan. Sounds good to Darren. Okay, the audio is perfect. Okay.
Oh, never mind. That was mine.
You gotta turn up your sound, I guess.
Yeah, my faulty on Microsoft microphone connection. Okay.
Oh, no.
All right.
Regardless, thank you. I did adjust a little bit, so it's all good.
All right.
Well, hello everyone. I'm gonna switch over to screen and we'll dive into Unity here. This is my 3rd window here. There we go. Screen 2. All right. Hopefully everyone can see my screen all right here. I'm just gonna stretch this out to be a little bit more comfortable. I'm going to temporarily switch this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to switch over to the default layout so everyone's on the same page. There we go. And let's just take a look at what we're making today, and then I'm going to dive into the actual workshop instruction section. All right. Hopefully this runs through no issues. I did replace the batteries on my Quest controllers, so that should be good. All right. Launching it up. All right, remove that. You spent too long outside of a known play area to turn to a player. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. 1 sec. Just gonna. Can still hear me now? Okay, all good. So, yeah, I am going to use the Oculus Link here to run my Oculus Quest in a VR headset on my PC. Now, I don't know if some of you guys have heard what's going to happen here is Oculus is coming out with Oculus Air, which will allow you to have PC VR experiences on the Quest wirelessly, so you don't have to use this cable to hook up to your PC. So that's pretty exciting as well. See if I can see my controllers here. Okay, so the idea is we grab this bowling ball here, and hopefully my aim isn't terrible. We let this run, and my aim is pretty bad, so that missed. But the idea is when it hits the floor, it comes back here. So that's part of the mechanic we're going to be working on today. And oh my goodness, it is bad. Let me get that going. There we go. All right, so that's the idea for what we're trying to do here today. So let's get that going. We'll figure out how to make that happen. All right. So what you're looking at right now is a build scene, our build project for Unity. Or in case I called into a meeting, eh? The HTC wireless playtime isn't very good, so I hope that the Oculus does better. Me too. Yeah, I actually have the wireless adapter for the HTC Vive Pro. So I see what you mean. It's pretty fun. The eye performance of the app affected using Oculus Link. Well, the Oculus Link is going to offload the processing from the Quest onto your PC's graphics card. So the performance is substantially better than using your Quest on its own. And the scene is very pretty. So yes, I'm using a outer space skybox for this. So you guys will get access to all of these assets as well. So it'll be a good set of assets to have in your repertoire. It's for your own safety. we got Chris in here. All right, cool. So yeah, let's talk about what you're seeing here. So right now, this is your Unity window, and then the scene I'm looking in right now is called the scene view. This allows me to fly around my scene and design my scene. So if I was to select this thing here, maybe with the ball and all that is associated with it, I can move things around in my scene and have kind of everything placed where I want it to and interact with each other in a certain way. I made this lane too big because my aim with bowling is pretty bad. But I'm sure you guys can do better when you're standing. That's my excuse. I'm sitting down in a chair. Anyways, so that's the idea. This is the scene view. It allows you to edit Unity a bit. Now, all those people who are 9s and 6s in Unity and whatnot, bear with me as I'm going to go through the interface a little bit. But we're going to cover the XR Interaction Toolkit today, just to get you comfortable setting up a VR environment and kind of showing how this will work. This is already more engaging than my Unity course right now, Jordan. Okay, so scene view, we can look around, we can fly around, and navigation in here is right mouse button to look around, middle mouse button, if you hold that down, you can pan around. Remember, there will be a recording, so bear with me as I go through these. If you don't have a middle mouse button, there's a little hand tool. You can press the Q key and left click to look around. If you hold the shift key while you do this, it is dramatically faster. That's a little way to beat your impatience, so to speak. If you hold the Alt key and the right mouse button, that's a way to zoom in. Same with the scroll wheel up and down. I like the Alt key and right mouse button just because it's a little bit more, you get more fine control, which is especially useful when you're dealing with image targets in augmented reality. This one is the best. Oh my God, thank you guys. All right. And then another cool tool here is if you select an object and you press the F for focus or foxtrot, you can focus in on the object, and then you can hold the Alt key and left click and keep your view, maintain your focus on the object and rotate your view around, versus the right mouse button, which you look around. Now, while you're holding the right mouse button, you can use WASD to fly around, Q and E to fly up and down. So a lot of ways to navigate your scene. Same with the arrow keys. So whatever you're most comfortable with. I love the right mouse button and flying around, WASD, Q and E. These are great. And then F for focusing in on an object and holding the Alt key, and left mouse button to pan around, and right mouse button to zoom in and out. Those are my 3 favorite ones. What version of Unity are you using? I'm using Unity 2020. Carol answers your question. Yeah, Omar sees it there. I just wanted to use the latest stable version. I think I'm a little outdated on the major updates, but I have the best version of Unity for now. Okay. Now, with all that said, that's how you navigate. If you select objects in your scene, so when I say objects, I'm talking about these things that you're seeing in the world in my scene view. I select one of those. I have a bunch of ways to manipulate those objects, such as the move tool, rotate tool, scale tool, and then there's the rect tool and combination of the first 3 I just talked about, and some custom tools like the edited sphere collider. So move tool, you see these little arrows. I can move the object along the world's X, Y, and Z plane. That's right, Z is the proper way to say it. I don't care what you Americans tell me. So the red axis is the X-axis. This is what the world considers actually boozy, what the world considers right. The green axis is the Y-axis. This is what the world considers up. The blue axis is the forward axis. This is what is the z-axis I'm talking about. Now, as the left-hand rule, the left thumb rule I like to mention for when you're rotating objects. So the next thing is if you hit the E for echo key or this rotate tool, you can rotate an object along that axis as well. If you lose the left hand, you can figure out what's positive. So point your thumb in a direction. The direction your fingers curl is positive. So you're pointing right, you're pointing up, you're pointing down, back, whatever. That'll come in handy once you start coding a little bit, but no worries. Color. It helps. I usually try to see the top bar of Unity and your window tell me what version the person is using. Helps me a lot. Yep. Color. Unless I'm programming, then I'm forced to spell it color. Exactly. So with that said, I am able to manipulate objects using the arrow keys here. When I select the move tool and I have an object selected, you'll see the position values here. These are in meters, the metric unit. Once again, I don't know what they're deciding. So coding is American style, but the position is non-American. They got to make up their mind. But the X, Y, Z values are in meters, which is about 3.5 feet, just over a yard. And yeah, so that's how you move it along an axis. If you hit the E key, echo, you can rotate along an axis. You can also freeform rotate. If you hold the control key whenever you're doing these things, you can see that there's snap rotation, snap movements, snap scales. Scale option here, you can say scale in a particular axis, so scale in all axes at the same time. And the rect tool, which allows you to scale objects as if it's like a window kind of thing. It's a little weird scaling spheres, but that's the idea. And then all three, and then the ability to edit just the sphere collider, which determines the area that is going to actually collide with things, physical area of the object, and that is different from the mesh, because you can have a physical area that determines collisions. I hope I can find this other thing here. That is totally separate. So the mesh is here, the visual is here, but the collision detection is going to be way over here. So yeah, it can get weird. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so that is the scene view. That is how you look around, move around objects and such. On the left here is the hierarchy window. You will be cooler than the other kids, Jordan, right on. Good to be using Unity again. My Unity first year makes me use C++ in Visual Studio, no game engine. Yeah, that does sound pretty lame, Jordan. Just kidding. I had to do C++ first year as well. Unreal Engine, but not in Unity. Only done 2D games in Unity. Oh, man. Unity is far more vested in XR than Unreal Engine, for sure. Okay, so with that said, what is this window? This is the hierarchy window. This lists every game object in your scene. When I say game object, I'm talking about every single thing in your scene. I'm talking about the camera. I'm talking about this bowling lane. I'm talking about this ball here. Everything, the game object listed here. And there's a hierarchy, so you have parent-child relationships. So you see this. This is a empty game object. It has nothing but a transform component. We'll talk about these a bit momentarily. But it's the parent of all these kegels, these bowling pins, which have their own, world. They're their own game objects as well. Anyway, so that's parent-child relationships, kind of creates that anchoring for multiple objects or one child object. But at 74, not sure what. Dang, Carol. Okay. Now, whenever you select an object, you'll see the inspector window on the right side of the screen light up with a bunch of information. So if I select one of these kegels, you'll see that it has the name, of course. Tags is a good way to organize it. Layers is a great way to handle different physics and rendering of objects. This is a prefab, which means that it's saved in your project folder somewhere. Has a bunch of preset values for a bunch of different things. Now, in terms of the components that I was talking about, transform, most things will have transforms unless they're UI elements, which will have rect transforms. It's a little different. We won't talk about that much today. Definitely worth checking out the class for things like that. It's about your inner coolness. Now, the transform, like I said, mentions the position, rotation, and scale of an object. The mesh filter is responsible for communicating to your computer what are the faces of this object, how are they positioned, what are the vertices of this object, what are the edges of this object, how does that all look and make up. So that's what the mesh filter communicates to Unity and to your graphics card. Now, what does the mesh renderer do? Well, it's responsible for communicating to your graphics card what each face looks like. And in this case, this shaded, happens to look like this. Each face, this face is white, this face is red, and so forth. Some of the objects may have textures that are a bit more complicated, but that's the general idea. Now, that's the mesh renderer. You can see at the top left of this scene view, I can change a lot of things. There's a lot of options up here. And the next one is the capsule collider. This is responsible for determining the physical area, the area in which, if it was to fall, this thing was to fall, the capsule collider would be the thing that tells it, hey, landing, stop here. And that this also means that this area here, although the mesh isn't there, this area is still part of the collision detection zone. It's funny conversations going on. Does the mesh work as a hitbox in the case, or do you need to add extra hitboxes for the pins? Carlos, that is correct. You are adding extra collisions. Now, if I wanted, I could, instead of using a capsule collider, get rid of that, I could use what's called a mesh collider. A mesh collider then will actually just form to the mesh that it's inserted here. If I make it convex, you can see how it's now become visible to me, but it's not perfect anymore. But a mesh collider is a little bit more expensive, and for the purpose of this application, a capsule collider is perfect. So why waste that processing power and not just use a primitive collider, right? We need to add colliders. Yes, there are colliders which use meshes though. Yeah, look at that. Got some nice people in here answering questions. Mesh colliders? Yes, Jordan, they are more intensive. Now, as a side note, because you asked that question, Jordan, if you do want a customized collider, but you don't want to have to use a bunch of primitives, one thing you could do is have this beautiful model, like a gingerbread man or whatnot, and instead of using this as a mesh collider, you could make a low polygon version of your gingerbread man in your 3D modeling software. You decimate that mesh that exists there. So you import into Unity two meshes. So this one is, let's just imagine this is a straight line. You bring this one into Unity, bring this one into Unity, and what you end up doing is, I need to delete this stuff here. What you end up doing is in Unity, let me move that to a different layer. In Unity, what you end up doing is you just overlay the collision detection of these two things together. And that's a cheap way to get a relatively accurate mesh, effectively, because collision detection isn't that great anyways. So that's more than good enough for you to get a much cheaper collision detection for a complicated object. Now, and still having the concavity, because as soon as you use a regular mesh collider, like we were, and you use the Kegel and you make it convex, you lose that concavity of this mesh. So if you use a regular mesh, estimated version, you would still save the power and maintain concavity. Holy, that is big brain. Thank you. All right, so that is one way. And then the rigid body here is another component that's responsible for the physics of these objects. Or just use the all-purpose box collider and transform it around all the pins to compensate for terrible aim. That's another thing, yeah. Darren, I wish I had done that. I thought of that. That would have made my shooting of it really easy. But okay, so those are components. You see a list of game objects here. The window at the bottom is your project window. This shows you a bunch of files that you have that are relevant to your application, such as the models that I have for the bowling app, right? So I have the Kegel, I have the ball, I have the floor. These kinds of things are relevant to this application. You may also have models and stuff in here that you are not using in your final application, but if you go to File, Build Settings, when you actually make your application, if they're not included in the build, they're not going to take up space in your app. So, you can have extra stuff in here. If you're not using it, no big deal. It's not going to be taking up any sort of resources on your final app. That's just something to know on the side. Okay, so let's talk about recreating this scene. and how you would make this into a VR capable Unity project. Oh, as a side note, there's also a console window. That's great for when you're making coding mistakes. Would it increase the size of the APK? No, it wouldn't. That's the key thing. It wouldn't increase the size of an Android file, whether that's for Oculus Quest or for an Android phone. That's what Carlos is referring to when he says APK. That's an install file for those particular systems, Android and Oculus Quest. Okay, so yeah, let's dive into a new scene, and we'll work through the build process for this app. I'm just going to go to File, New Scene, and I'll just go with whatever the default scene is here. I'm not going to save that. Okay, so this is typically what you will see in Unity when you start up a new scene. Now, we need to make a bunch of things before we make the VR experience. As is, you're just going to have a basic camera. If you put on your headset and you hit play, all you would see is this. If you moved your head around, nothing would happen. So that there would be a potential issue there. So some of the things you need to do, one of the first steps is to go up to Window at the top of your Unity screen. You want to go down to Package Manager. And once you're in the Package Manager, again, this is Unity 2020. So it's a little different than 2019. But once you're in the Package Manager, what you need to do, you won't see the XR Interaction Toolkit because it's in preview. So what you need to do is go to this gear icon and go to Advanced Project Settings and then Enable Preview Packages. You need to make sure this check mark is enabled. This little checkbox is enabled. Great. And then you'll see the XR Interaction Toolkit. I'm going to switch over to the Unity registry so we can see all of them. So that's the first thing. Gear symbol, Advanced Project Settings, Enable Preview Packages. Again, to get to this window, you went to Window, Package Manager. Okay, so now that we're here, we're looking for the XR Interaction Toolkit. You can also search for it here. If you just type in XR, probably going to be there. Okay, so again, it's a preview package. That's why we need to do that. You would select the XR Interaction Toolkit, and there would be an install button. I've already installed it in the interest of time, so I won't go through that again. And you'd want to also get the XR plugin management system. So we'll install that as well. These will work great together. Question: can we use the HTC Vive or just Oculus? You can use the HTC Vive as well. You do have to do a bit of a workaround, but it works with the XR Interaction Toolkit. Steam has made their own version for the Valve Index, so you have to import that externally. Did we start with a new 3D project or just Universal Render? So I did use a Universal Render pipeline. So if you're starting a new project, let's go to the Unity Hub. We create a new project. I went over here, New. I selected Unity 2020, and I actually picked the URP project because I actually like this version more than 3D. This looks better, and it runs more efficiently than the regular 3D Unity projects. So that's a side note. It doesn't matter. You can use whichever. I would suggest using the URP though. And for anyone who wants to make really good, like realistic looking games, the HDRP might be the way to go for you. This is going to give you pretty much the same graphics as like a high-end Unreal Engine kind of graphics, as long as you adjust the settings. Okay, so that's that. We did new, and then I picked URP and named my project and created. And then I got this. This is what you would see. And next thing we did was Window, Package Manager. We went to the gear symbol, Advanced Project Settings, Enable Preview Packages, and then we install the XR Interaction Toolkit, XR Plugin Management. Great, now we've got those two things in our scene. If we go to the XR Interaction Toolkit, if we expand the samples here, make sure to include the default input actions. We want to make sure to import those as well. You'll see this is useful for the input mapping bindings for our controllers. We don't want to have to do these by ourselves. It's quite an arduous process that you can easily avoid. And you can edit them after the fact. Okay. What are other uses of the XR Interaction Toolkit other than bowling? Well, you can make any VR application with the same toolkit. I'm just using VR bowling as one example. Okay. Any checklist for making new games before you start? I know that Quest 2 devs are always worried about frame rate, but not sure how you check that in Unity. So things like that, you'd want to do, like you can check your stats in the game window. There's a little stats option so you can get a rough idea. But generally what you want to work with we can talk about this a little bit later, is the analysis section and profiler. This is your best friend when it comes to optimization. And some of the things you want to think about when it comes to Oculus Quest is you don't want to use soft shadows. You want to use hard shadows. It's going to make a big difference in performance. But if you want to make good looking shadows in the Oculus Quest, you're going to have to edit certain things. Like if you go to you go to edit project settings. This is just a side note for those interested in Quest development. Go to edit project settings. Under your project settings, you go to quality. You would force a quality. So for example, Android is going to go to this green checkbox. You can do this in all of them just so that you have the rest being the same. But anyways, you'd go to the quality for Android. And then what you'd want to do is, where is the real time? Okay, you know what? We'll get into that a bit later, just because it's going to take a bit. But essentially, you want to change the shadows to close fit. Yeah, so that's fine. Okay, drop them in the questions. Yeah. So, anyways, we've enabled those two things. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Edit Project Settings. We're going to go to the XR Plugin Management System here. We're going to enable Oculus. I'm going to click this and then go to the Android section. You can also enable Oculus there. That'll make it a bit easier for us to just test with the Oculus devices that we have. And like I said, there's a bit of a workaround for the Vive as well. All right, so with those two in, we want to go to the Input Manager. You'll see these listed here. That's great if you're using the old input. But what you'd want to do is if you go to Player Settings, there's an Active Input Handling section here. It's probably going to say Input Manager Old. You should want it to say both, and this will kind of allow you to take advantage of both the new Action Input System and the old Input Manager. Now, anyways, that aside, one of the things you'd want to do is set up your scene. So we're going to right-click in here, go down to XR, and bring in our room scale XR rig. Bam. Now this thing, and I'm going to delete the main camera as well. So there was a camera in here. I would right-click and delete that if that's stuck around. It should disappear when you bring in the XR rig. This is going to be our XR rig. Now there's an option here, tracking origin mode, floor. You can make it different if you have a eye level experience, but floor is great. The camera offset has some children, so you can expand through this parent-child relationship. What you're looking at are these left and right controllers. You can see now that there's a lot of options here for kind of controllers there are. So for this one, I want to grab things. So these controllers, not going to be the best for that use case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these controllers, and I'm going to remove the interactor line visual component. So I have both selected. I see these components scrolling down, interactor line visual, right click on that, remove the component. If you want to grab things with lines, that's fine. I like the whole grabbing with what you can, but you can point and grab things for sure. I'm going to remove the line visual. You don't have to do this portion if you're going to do the grabbing instead, or if you're not going to do the grabbing one. You can remove the line renderer. We can remove the X-ray interactor, XR ray interactor. So now all we're left with on each of these is an XR controller. Now this XR controller has no visual. It needs something under the model transform. It needs something here to give it a visual. Now, I suggest going to the Oculus Art controllers website. Now, I already have this in the project, but Oculus Art controllers, these are free to use from Oculus, a set of controllers for whatever Oculus device you're making it for. Left and right controller FBX files are the ones we want. And so if we navigate through our imports folder, I have imported that package. I'll go all the way through these until I see the import folder. So in my assets, you'll see imports, Oculus controllers. When you bring that into Unity, go into the Oculus controller folder, Oculus controller there, and then you pick the kind of controllers you want. I want the Oculus Touch, Quest, and Rift S because I'm using Quest 1, although I have a Quest 2 here in the bin here, and then export folder. This is where I got my controllers. There's the L for left, R for right. So if I select the left-hand controller, I am just going to drag and drop this into the model transform. If I select the right-hand controller, I'm just going to drag and drop this into the model transform of that controller. Bam, I've got two. Dayon in the house. Oh yeah, he is a legend. Do you have a bin for VR headsets? Not sure what you mean. I'm just gonna quickly save my scene though. It's getting a little much of the ways before it crashes. So I'm just gonna go File, Save, and go to my Scenes folder, and I'm just gonna save this as my VR workshop. Let's go with that. Now, once does Unity crash often? It depends what's in there. I find if you get enough packages going, then maybe. If you have Vuforia going, it will crash quite a bit. I haven't experienced a crash with with VR stuff too much, but I don't want to risk it, So there we go. I've got the controllers in. I've got something representing my hands. Now, if these emojis can talk. Now, back in my XR rig, I've got these things representing my controllers, but I want to make sure that this is all going to work. So I'm going to go to my XR rig, add a component called the XR, I believe it's the controller manager. Sorry, just a sec here. Let's take a look at our other scene. Bring that scene in here as well. So you can have two scenes in the same scene. It's a little crazy, I know. But that is a thing you can do. And so on the XR rig, what I want to put is the input manager. So the XR input, what was it? The module? Sorry, some of these things are input manager. Sorry, just the input manager. That's what I want. The XR, I want to add a input manager, input action manager, I should say. And this is going to take our action assets. This is where we can work with the input. So on the XR rig, I've added an input action manager. Here's this assets list. I'm just going to hit the plus symbol here. It says none. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to bring in my XR default input actions. So now I've got input available for my controllers. If I go to my controllers, you can see here that these are empty. But now I can actually reference some proper input from these. So if we take a look at our done version here, we have the right and left controller. And if you see the XR controller action-based script now, you can actually see that, well, these are all filled. So this is a great component now to have. So I'm going to go to these controllers. And instead of using this one still, we have the reference, and we know how to do that. I'm going to remove this controller. And I'm going to instead add the XR controller action-based. Sorry, let me make sure this is the same one. XR controller action-based. Go here, add component, action-based, and need to make sure that this input is there. Let's go to edit project settings. Manager is there. Just a sec, missing the component. Yes, okay, so let's see if I can get the XR direct interactor on here first. That is going to be responsible for grabbing things. I'm going to bring in the XR controller action based here. Oh, right. Okay, so let me do that here again. So now that we have all those things in our XR rig, we've got the input action manager, just like we do here in our scene here. Let me just make sure I'm getting the right thing. Where is that thing there? XR default. There we go. So that's there. Left and right controller. I'm going to add the XR controller. I'm pretty sure it's action based. Yep, action based. Add that component. And it's not showing that up. So that's great. Let me quickly pull this up here. Okay, so I'm going to just drag in this reference instead. Is this left controller, right controller? That's the one I'm looking for. Oh, sorry guys, it's supposed to autofill here, but it's being the whole law of the demo kind of thing. See if I drag and drop the default left controller and right controller. I can do that here. 1 second. Just a moment. Cue classical music. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. It was autofilling for me. I literally just did this version, so that's a little brutal. Input XR interaction. Input XR interaction manager. That's the same. XR rig. Input action manager. Action assets. That's the one I put. We'll be with you shortly. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see here if I can just drag and drop these in. This one is for the position one, so there's the left-hand position, and so forth. Okay, so if I go to the left-hand controller, if I use the reference, so position action, rotation action, I can use the reference in here, hit the little dot, and then choose left-hand move or left-hand position, these kinds of things, and fill these references up with the ones we've gotten. It is supposed to do it all at once on its own when I add that controller back in. So that's the part that's a little rough, but if you want, you can manually click on these references, and wherever it says input reference, if you want to use one of these things like the position, rotation action, or select action, you can bring in your left-hand value. So left-hand select, for example, and that's when you grab something. That's the idea. Got thank you. The law of the demo, right? Okay. Anyways, but that's the one I want, right? The position, rotation, and select actions. Those are the ones I need. Let me just make sure this is set to rotation. There we go. Just like this one here. Okay. Let me double check something here. I'm gonna just create a XR room scale action rig here. And let's just make sure that this guy, no, he's not getting it either. Okay. But anyways, that's the idea. You give the actions you want to the controller. I'm just going to copy this guy over here to make it a bit faster. Here we go. Okay, so on this controller, on this rig here, so I don't have to walk through that again. Let me remove this scene for now. So on the XR rig, I have the left and right controllers. Now, the things I've added to them after the XR controller action-based system is a XR direct interactor. And the XR direct interactor needs an interaction manager. So I'm just going to drag and drop that into there. Same thing with that. So same thing with the other hand, interaction manager. I'm just going to drag and drop that into there. Okay. Let me just double set that one just so I don't wreck that setting there. And anything else was good. Okay, so the rest is fine. Remember to save. Yeah, I'll save that. Okay, so I've got my XR rig. I've got the left-hand controller and the right-hand controller going. So what I added to those is the left-hand controller, it's got the XR controller action-based rig on there, and it's got the input settings. All of them are linked instead of doing it manually. And then what I add is a rigid body component. Once again, for the physics, this way I'll be able to know when it actually collides with something, and then what's called an on-trigger enter function will occur. So this is partly what you need for this to work correctly. You can kind of get away with it, but the physics typically calculate better if it has a rigid body. And now the sphere collider is another thing I add. So I click on, once again, on add component. I'd add a rigid body, and I'd add a sphere collider. Once I add a sphere collider, you would see that it has this component in the inspector window, and you can change the radius as you please. So I'm just going to set the radius down to 0.1, so it's about the size of our hand. Now, with that said, the actual tracking is ready to go, and our controllers are ready to grab stuff. We'll get into the grabbing momentarily, but we've got our XR controller, and once again, in our model transform, we have the controllers rigged. So let's just save our scene here, and I'm going to hit play, see the tracking in action. So now you can see that we are looking around, and the Unity scene is working right. Perfect. All right, I'm just going to rename this to 1. Golden Roof from Nintendo says that. You're getting the console errors when to drag references. Getting any console errors? No, Darren, I was not getting any console errors. But there we go. Under samples. Okay, let's try this. So under samples, select default input actions. So let's go into there. Select each one and add to action-based controller. Yeah, so, okay, it's wanting you to do it this way. Okay, so the left and right controller, you can directly drag and drop this, is what you're saying. Can't add action-based. Right controller is action-based controller. Let's see if I added a new room scale XR rig here, and these controllers, I'd get rid of their XR-based controller, and then on the left one can add the left XR controller action-based. Okay, there we go. So that'll be the way to do it automatically. So when you bring in the new rig, I can select the right hand, and you can just drag and drop one of these input actions to it. That's the wrong one. This is the right controller here. So you can select the controller and drag and drop one of these input actions. So for me, earlier, it was working the other way. So that's very strange. But there we go. So the way you could do it faster is go into the actual folder for your XR thing. So that was under imports, or let me just go to samples here. That was under assets, samples, XR interaction toolkit, this version, default input actions, and then you can drag and drop these presets onto one of the controllers after removing the existing one, and then it will have the input actions. And then once again, you reference the controller models, should be good to go. Thank you, Kara. I don't know why that was working differently today, but there we go. So now that we have our XR rig, we know it's tracking, let's create our scene. So the idea here is that we create, let's start with our bowling lane. I'm going to create a 3D object plane, and that's where I'm standing now. And what I want to do is apply a material to it. Now I have a bowling lane texture, and I could just drag and drop that onto the plane, and bam, there it is. Now I want it to look a little bit better than this because it's a square, not a great bowling lane. So I'm just going to shrink that down horizontally until it looks a little bit more circular on these lanes here. And I'm just going to move that lane down here. So we'll select the move tool. I'm just going to move that down the lane there like so. And from here, our XR rig is placed. So I'm just going to move it back so that it encompasses our XR rig, kind of like that. We'll be standing on the end of the lane. And I want its Y value to 0. There we go. And our XR rig value should also be 0 so that it's kind of positioned at the same spot. So that's the idea. So we've got our XR rig in. I brought a plane in. Once I brought my plane in, I applied this bowling ball texture. Now, if you apply the texture and it isn't see-through like this, you want to make sure that in the material, so if you see the actual plane, see it has a material here. If you expand that, you want to make that surface type transparent. If it's opaque, it'll look like this. So we just change that over to transparent, and the lane will be see-through. So that's looking good. We are set up in our scene like so. Next thing we're going to do is with this plane, we stretch it out so that it's thinner. Looks good. You can also expand it this way if you want to make it very difficult to aim. That's up to you. Now, we're just setting up the visual for our environment. So once we've done that, we know where our lane is. Let's go to outer space then. So to do that, we're going to go up to Window. We're going to go down to Rendering and Lighting. Once we're in the lighting section here, we'll see that one of the options is Environment. Now, based on which version of Unity you're using, you may see different options here, and your lighting environment options will actually be in the first menu option. But what you're looking for is the skybox material. Now, right now it's set to default skybox. I'm going to click on there. I'm going to pick one of the skyboxes that is different. So I like this one here. This one looks the best, but there's a couple other options for you to go with, such as the green variation of the one there. There's also a slightly different purple one where you have kind of black outer space, and then that's there. But once again, my favorite is definitely this one. Okay, so now we have a different skybox as well. So now we're definitely in outer space, and you can see yourself on through the floor as well. So that's kind of the cool effect of having a transparent lane. Okay, now that you're here, let's create some ball to throw. So I'm going to just create a little cube here, and I'm going to use the move tool to position it. Now here, interesting manipulation. If you hold down the V for Victor key, you can see that you can kind of hover over a corner and snap the cube to another surface. I'm just going to scale that down using the rect tool here, like so. Becomes a nice little place to place the ball. So I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to then go to my prefabs folder, or my imports folder, I should say. Where will it be? It's in one of these folders here, models. So I'm in my models folder. In there, you'll see the bowling, kegel, and ball folder. And in there, there's prefabs. One for the kegel, one for the ball. So I'm going to just drag and drop the ball into here. And you can see it's massive. So I'm going to definitely have to shrink that down. Say about that. And there we have our ball. So now with this in the scene, massive is good. Well, you can definitely have a big ball and makes it a lot easier to aim, for sure. But there it is. Got my ball in my scene. Now to make it grabbable, first off, I don't want this to be a prefab because I can't really change quite a few things when it is that. So I'm going to right click on it and make it and unpack it, because it has this weird unnecessary parent-child relationship you'll see momentarily. So I'm going to just where's the prefab and unpack. That's what I can do here. So I unpack this prefab. Now I can take this child ball out, because this is just an empty game object I don't need. I don't like that. So this ball is in my scene now. What I'm going to do to make this grabbable is I'm going to add a sphere collider. So it needs a collider of some sort. It's going to help with the physics there. I'm going to add a rigid body that will actually implement the physics, such as use gravity. The gravity's there. I can actually pick it up and throw it using forces. And then finally, the XR grab interactable. So I've got those three things to grab an object. All right, so this ball is now one I can grab. How does it know that weight the ball is? So under the rigid body, the mass is 1 kilogram. So 1 kilogram is about 2.2 pounds. So you can edit this as well. You can also edit things like the drag, how much kind of resistance it has to movement, how much angular drag resistance it has to rotation, stuff like that. If you want really good physics calculations on something, you can change the interpolate option to interpolate. That'll make the physics calculations on it much better, but it won't. It will take up more processing power. So try and reserve this interpolate option for a few things that you're working with. Since this is a pretty simple use case. I'm literally the only thing I'm having physics collisions with, so might as well interpolate this ball to make it react a little bit better. 1 kilogram is really wimpy. I guess a good ball would be, 5 kilograms, I guess? Almost, that's a bit much. Maybe full 4 kilograms, 8 point something pounds, almost 9 pounds. There you go. So got a nice heavy ball there. One thing I'm going to do here is I want to prepare for something. So when the ball, when the ball kind of gets off of the rails, I want it to come back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty game object at the same spot. This empty game object, I'm just going to store this here. So ball, empty game object. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this empty game object to my ball spawn. And what's going to happen is whenever this ball falls off the rails, it's going to move this ball back to this ball spawn spot. That's going to be the idea. And set the velocity of it to nothing so it doesn't keep rolling on me. Okay, so those are the two objects we put there. We've got the rel. Not like you can feel the weight anyways. If it's changing the mass, change it in VR. Does it change how hard you have to bowl for it to faster movement? That is correct, Jordan. You would have to throw it faster. You should change the transfer momentum to the pins. If you hit them, that is also correct, Ross. Great. So that being said, there it is. The ball spawn is there. Ball is there. Our XR rig is here. I'm going to just move our XR rig back, I think would be a little bit better. Move it back a little bit closer to the ball. So now let's see if we can grab that ball. I'm just going to move ourselves a little bit closer to it. Let's see if I can reach out and grab it. There's my game window. And there is my ball. Oh, and I can throw it. I bashed my controller on something. And there it goes. So I have my ball and I can throw it around. Great. You can always duct tape the actual ball to your controller to make it more. Do it again, my child would say. Okay, so now I have an object I can throw. Great. Now let's take a look at setting up some pins. So I'm going to take this pin here. I'm going to put it there. Once again, really big pin. So I'm going to scale that way down. Let's go with something more like this as an appropriate size. This actually could be a little bit thinner, that it's more circular, I think. Yep, a little bit more thin. But you know what? I will go with big pins. Massive bowling needs to be a thing. Well, let's do that then. I won't have as many pins so that it fits, but I'll keep some big pins going. And this, again, a little problem here. It's prefab. I'm going to unpack this prefab so that I can remove this parent-child relationship, just because it'll be easier to make it into a collider. So look, I have this Kegel. It's its own thing. If I add a component called a capsule collider, notice how it automatically takes the size that it needs to be. So that's a great useful thing. So I don't like having this worthless parent-child relationship. So this pin, for it to react, I'm just going to add a rigid body to it, so it will actually bother doing those physics interactions. So now I'm going to also disable use gravity because I want it to float away when I hit it. So there's my bowling pin. I'm going to just duplicate this pin. So I'll just do Control D, and let's just move one over here. Control D, let's move one over here. Control D, let's move one over here, and here, and here. That should be good enough. It's not as professional as the previous one, but we've got some bowling pins. There we go. Okay, but let's not stop there. Let's create something called physics materials. I'm going to go to my materials folder. Created some already, but let's just do that again. I'm going to just create a new folder for that. Physics materials. So what I'm going to do for this is that I'm going to change the way these things behave. Dibs on 5% of all the money you make by selling this game with massive things. So, and I will test it for hours. So with this here, the bowling ball, what I'm going to do is you can see how this bowling ball has a sphere collider that needs, or doesn't need one, but it has the option for a material. But this time we're talking about a physics material. So if I right click in here and create a physics material, where's that guy? Physics material. And I'll call this one Bouncy 2, just because I already have one called Bouncy. select this one, and you'll see a few options to change the physical behavior of this object when it collides with something or is touching something. So this pin, I'll say this is actually not, sorry, this bouncy one will be for the pins. It'll bounce around a little bit. So bouncy, I'm going to say the bounciness, I'm going to set that to 1, so fully bouncy. I don't think it needs any friction. That'll be worthless. Well, I'll leave no, it's fine. And then the bounce combine will be the maximum. So minimum is whatever has the lower between the two collisions, whatever has the lower bounciness will be what is calculated, multiply or average. We'll take the two into account. And maximum will be whatever is the most bouncy of the two things that are colliding will be its reaction. So this thing has a bounce of 1, maximum bounce. So when it gets hit, it will take into account the bounce value of 1. Now, to assign it to the pins, I'm going to select all of these pins. In the capsule collider, I'm going to drag and drop this bouncy material, bam, into there. Now, I want to create one more for the actual ball, and I'll call this slippery 2 at. Not a big deal. Let me rename that to 2. And this slippery material, I'm going to reduce the static and dynamic friction to 0. Bouncy isn't necessary. I don't actually want it to be bouncy. And then the friction combine, I will set to minimal. Whatever has the lowest friction is how you will respond in a collision. So when it hits the lane, minimum means its friction will be 0. Default friction is 0.6, sorry. So we don't want it to mess and calculate that into account. All right, so this one, sphere collider selected, slippery physics material, bam, into there. Save that, and let's try that out. Try not to hit my thing this time. So I've got my bowling ball and some bouncy pins there. When I just try and hit that, oh, they're floating away already. Let me address that. I still managed to miss. This is actually very disappointing. But I think the issue is that they're touching each other a little bit, so that the collision occurred right away. I was messing with it, so I'm just going to make sure that they're not touching. Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to make this ball a little bit bigger to make this aim a little bit easier. There we go. Okay. I better not miss. Looks like a baseball, slippery and bouncy. You can do this, Ozzy. Okay. Wish you luck. I'm gonna mess this up. All right. Okay. Boom. There we go. Giant floating away pins. And look, my ball isn't here now. Now what can I do? Well, let's make sure our ball comes back to us. We're going to do a little bit of coding. And what we'll do is we'll create a floor. So I'm going to create a giant plane here. And let me just center that out. Reset its transform. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it rather large, like so. Just move it underground so that basically whenever the ball falls, it's going to hit this plane, and then that will cause it to move back to the spawn. That's the goal with this. But I'm just going to make this really big. And this is actually a common practice in a lot of games as well. So when the player is running on a train, and sometimes you'll see something fall through the floor and then jump right back up, that is what's going on. There's a floor under the actual world, and the purpose of it is to do this. I'm going to create a new script called C# script in my scripts folder. And I'll call this ball resetter. You make the ball return to you by pressing a controller button. You totally could, Carlos. Yeah, that would take one of those input actions. You could use one of those input actions to call that event. Let's do the whole floor thing here. So it is opening up this, and so this is a bunch of C# code. This is a stub. It shows you all the things you're using here. We probably won't need collections or generic, but I'll leave that be. So this is C# for Unity. We have the name of the script here. It's public, so other scripts can see this. It's inheriting from mono behavior, which is why we can use special functions like start and update. Start function is the first thing that happens after leave await function. Update function is something that runs every frame. So this is how you would do something constantly, like tell something to move. Okay, but here we're going to say, okay, void on trigger enter. So when something touches the trigger zone of something else, what's going to happen is it's going to reset. So what we want is a reference to the transform. So m underscore ball spawn. So we're getting a reference to the ball spawn. I made this into a public variable so we can see it in the inspector. I could do a serialized private variable. That would be a better way to do it, but this is just a bit faster. A transform is the type of variable, and the type of variable transform is what determines the position of objects, right? So then that's what we care about. So we want a transform variable. On trigger enter is a mono behavior function that occurs when this ball will hit the trigger zone of this plane. So this plane has a mesh collider. I'm going to set that to a convex. I'm going to set that to a trigger. I probably want to move it a bit lower because that's way too big. So I'm going to move that down. 2D, I'm just going to move that further down. Let me take a look at it from the side. Something like this. Okay, so there's my collider underneath my actual game. This plane has a convex trigger mesh collider. Great. On it, I will put this script. It has a reference to the ball spawn. In zombies, have their names on the zombies. Cool. Man, this is making me miss VR development so much. I haven't done any of for a couple of years. I made an arcade zombie shooter for a call. Ah, sweet. So on trigger enter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if the other thing that has touched me, so this is to be on the plane, and the plane is going to check if the other thing is a bowling ball. It's tagged as bowling ball. If it is, it's just going to set the other dot transform dot position to the m underscore ball spawn dot position. So it's just going to reset its position. Now, there's a little thing, other dot transform, or I think I can actually just say other dot get component rigid body. I'm going to get a reference to the other thing's rigid body, so the bowling ball's rigid body, and it's going to set its velocity to equal vector3.0. And the reason we're doing this is because the ball is being thrown, so it's moving really fast. And then when it hits the bottom, compare tag better, it's the same. You're still comparing two strings, so it doesn't really matter. Yes, and this is the entirety of the script. Yes, Jordan, that is correct. We could instantiate it again, but instantiating is a little bit more expensive. You're correct. So the ball moves other dot transform dot position. So when the ball hits the plane, its position gets set back to the beginning, and the velocity is zeroed out. Velocity is a vector 3, which means x, y, z. It knows 3 different velocities, so it knows what direction it's going in. So this setting it to 0 means it will stop. So that'll be the purpose of this script. So now we have a ball resetter. Now remember, it was saying we are checking a tag. If the other thing is tagged as something, this ball, its collider, its tag is untagged, we want to check the bowling ball tag. So if that doesn't, obviously that won't exist for you. So you click on add tag, hit the plus symbol, and type in what tag you want, bowling ball in this case. So I set this ball tag to bowling ball, save my scene, and let's make that happen. So I'm just going to hit play and try that out again. Whoop. And huzzah. And then it hit the plane. Oh, right. I need to put that script actually on the plane. So the plane is here. It needs the ball resetter script. There we go. It needs a reference to the ball spawn. There we go. We just drag and drop those things. Now the plane has it. Now, also, I don't want to see the plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a material to the plane. So in my materials folder, I'm going to create a new material, and I'm just going to call this invisible material. I'm going to drag and drop that invisible material onto the plane, and the material itself, I'm going to make the surface type transparent, and the base map color just totally see-through. There we go. So now the plane exists there. It's invisible, but it's going to do its thing. or disable the render. That's also a good way to do it. That's actually a better way to do it. Yeah. All right. It's going to hit those two again, I think. And now when the ball drops, you see it disappear and it reappears here. You could also reset the angular velocity of this thing so that it doesn't keep spinning. But that's the idea. There we go. I got a spare. Got them all hit after a bit. So that's kind of the fundamental of it all. I mean, Carlos, you could probably make walls and a ceiling that does the same thing as the floor if you were really worried. That's true, yeah. Not really. The ball has gravity, Carlos. That's true. Yeah, I did leave gravity on the ball. And then, yes, instead of the material, I think this is the way I did it earlier. But the plane, instead of relying on, so this plane, instead of relying on a different material, so I used this invisible material. What you could do is actually just remove the mesh render and the mesh filter, because all you really need is this mesh collider for this thing to work. So you don't even have to worry about materials to make it invisible. That's just something for you to know. But yeah, since this doesn't need to be seen, you just have a collider zone that's invisible with the ball resetter script, and the collider is a trigger. All right, so there it is. That is, how big is this plane? If you would throw the ball without any walls and no drag, where would it end? Oh, like if I whip the ball as far as I can, where will it end? That is a good question. Well, I think this plane is probably good enough. I don't think I'd be able to throw it that far, but you can make it as big as you want if you're worried about that. Able to pick up the ball with your left hand and transfer it to your right. Yeah, you can totally do that. That is with the default interaction toolkit. So grab it with my left, grab it with my right, grab it with my left, grab it with my right. And then, yeah, I'm not going to be able to throw that very far. I'll try and whip it. We'll see how far that can go. All right. Immediately dropped it. Okay. That's about as far as I'll get it. Look at that. That was almost a strike. Juggling the bowling ball skills. Did you add models to your hands? I did, but they're not rendering right now for some reason. Let me see here. We can't see the models. That is true. The models should show up as part of the XR controllers. They're here. Let me add them as part of the model prefabs instead. They're supposed to work that way, but oftentimes you come across issues. So let's just put it in the model prefab instead. Yeah, that's supposed to work, but I think there's something weird happening with the tracking. As you can see, the model is showing up way over there for it. Yeah, that is behaving very strangely, but I think it will work on your end as it was working on mine earlier today, as most things were. Am I the only one getting a lot of lags in the live rendering? Maybe. Might be a legitimate issue there, but yeah. All right, I'm gonna let Luciana take over real quick, and then we'll get into some Q&A right after. But in terms of the application, it's running great. If you guys are interested in some other stuff, you should definitely check out the many courses available. I was seeding too. That's why I asked about the Oculus Link performance. No. So that's just the stream lag. The actual application runs perfectly well.
Hey, Ozzy.
Hey, Luciana, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
Awesome. All right, I'll call you back soon. Do you want to hang around?
Yeah, I'll hang around.
Okay,
I'll do
awesome.
the Q&A after, but
Okay.
I'll close up here the stream.
Okay, sounds good. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much to Ozzy. That was amazing. I think, needless to say, I think that he can join the Olympics bowling team, right? If you agree, definitely send it okay. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, round of applause. That was awesome. So everybody can hear me, everybody can see me. Let me know if you can't. Definitely, we had some great questions in the questions tab. Continue to send in your questions and definitely vote on your favorite ones. We'll get to them in a second. But before we do, yes, Ozzy is fire. That was awesome. And he got a spare. So there you go. Those are some, strong skills. So before, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen again. And before we go to the Q&A, I'm just going to quickly wrap up with a couple of resources. So let me just go here. All right, there we go. Okay, so before we go on, we always like to know what you guys think of the workshop. So I'm going to launch the second poll of the day, and please do let us know on a scale of 0 to 10 how likely you are to recommend this workshop to a friend. So this really helps us to make sure that we're catering the workshops, to you guys and giving what you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead 1 second here. All right, so the poll is published. If you could let us know, that would be great. And that way we keep creating workshops that you guys want to see. All right, so before we take a look at the courses, I'd love to invite everybody to our spring open house, which is happening next week, May 6th at 12 p.m. PST. So around the same time that the workshop started as well. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to share the link so everybody can sign up. All right, so in this open house, we're going to have a couple of speakers. We're going to be talking about our courses. And so if you're interested in additional learning opportunities, definitely come along and ask your questions and participate. It's going to be great. We're planning lots of cool things. All right, so I'm just going to leave that up there for a second. Well, actually, you guys can't really see my screen, right? Okay, well, I'm going to take down the button, but it's all on our website if you'd like to sign up. So let me get into our courses just a little bit more. So as I was mentioning, we have our Expert Development with Unity course. This is a beginner-friendly course. And in this course, you'll learn how to use Unity to make AR and VR apps. You go over the C# fundamentals, and that's the programming language for Unity. You get 4 hours of instruction per week for 10 weeks, and you get a weekly 101 support mentorship session on a personal project. So one of the cool things about this course as well, it just went through some recent upgrades. And in addition to the personal project, you also create about 8 other mini projects in class and 1 big final project. So it's very portfolio based, and you leave with some great materials to show potential employers or colleagues, or your current company. It's really, you'll have some great material for that. We have 2 new cohorts coming up, May 25th and July 6th. And with the bundle, it's $39.50. I'll talk a little bit more about the bundle later. And you get certification as well. So this one is beginner friendly. And then we also have our XR Project Accelerator. So this one, you do need Unity experience. It's an 8-week portfolio course. So it's based in a capstone project. So maybe you'd like to develop a certain idea or a concept or design a little bit more. You get 5 hours of instruction per week, as well as weekly office hours, a certification as well. And as I mentioned, you accelerate the design, development, and launch of a capstone project. So we have a cohort coming up May 25th, and that's $44.50 with the bundle. All right, so a little bit more about the bundles. In addition to each of the courses, you also get the C# scripting fundamentals if you'd like a refresher, and you get an Oculus Quest 2 headset, which is pretty cool. So you'll be good to go. And so you can see with the bundle, you get a lot of value for your money, which is awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I always love a discount. So I love bundles. All right, and before I finish up, I mentioned our interaction design and prototyping for XR. So this is a new course. We just launched it last week. This came after a lot of demand from students that were looking to have more information on the design aspect of projects. So in this course, you learn how to design an experience for AR and VR and how that's different from web and mobile apps. You learn the best practices and patterns of design applied to XR. You understand the usability for XR, as well as techniques and tools to design and create XR prototypes. And you leave with a CircuitStream certified XR designer with Unity badge as well. So certifications on all 3 of those courses. So this course is $39.50. And for our first cohort, yes, definitely emojis, thumbs up. For our first cohort on June 14th, alums get 50% off. And we'll be talking more about that as well as our spring sale in our open house event. So if you'd like more info, definitely come to that event. All right, so we're super flexible. So we have 3 different payment plans. And as I mentioned before, we also provide the team training. So it's all customized and to your needs. So one of our admissions experts can definitely talk to you about that if you're interested. And all of those 3 courses include one-on-one sessions with an XR expert. But if you're just looking to have the sessions themselves, you can definitely just purchase a pack. All right, so if you're still not sure about the courses or would like to see more and read more information, you can go to our website, circuitstream.com/learning, and download a syllabus or speak to one of our admissions advisors. And talking about admissions team, we have our power triple. Oh, it's like Charlie's Angels. There you go. That's what I'm going to start calling them, Charlie's Angels. So I see that's popular, so I'm just going to start sticking to that. Lucy's Angels, yes. Okay. Calling them, hello, angels. You have students with inquiries. I think Steph's is already accepted. Lucy's Devils, oh my God. Okay. Okay, so that's Steph, Kyle, and Brendan, power team. They're your personalized consultants for your every question and need. So if you don't know which course to take or what's the best learning path, they can definitely help you out. And then again, once you become our student, I'm here to help you with anything that you need. So there you go. We really believe in student support. All right, so to wrap up, we're going to go to our Q&A, but if you have any questions, if for our admissions team or after we finish the workshop, you can go to our website, circuitstream.com, and talk to them in the chat, or you can email us at education@circuitstream.com. And please do continue to stay in touch with us, so you can join us on our Slack group. I'm there, so you can continue to talk to me there. We can think of other nicknames for the admissions team. So I'm just going to post it here. There you go. And without further ado, I'm going to invite Ozzy back to the stage so we can go to the Q&A session. Awesome.
Hey, thank
Hey,
you,
Ozzy.
Luciana.
All right, let me stop sharing my screen here. Are you in support of the Lucy's Angels nickname?
I definitely, 100%. That's
brilliant.
Good.
All right, if Ozzy is on board, then it's done. It's decided. All right, well, let's go to your questions. I'm ordering them by upvotes. So Ozzy, looks like you already answered Carlos. So let's go to Christos Galeos. So definitely correct me if I'm butchering your name. So can you update a project to use the ERP if it was built on 3D, and if so, how?
Project to use ERP? Yes, for sure. You can definitely do that. You know what? I'll share my screen and on how to do that. Sorry, my connection is getting a little slow here for some reason. So let me just get the share screen option going.
I can still see and hear you fine. So maybe it's just on your end.
Well, hopefully you can see my screen there. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a default project. You would go over here, Window Package Manager, and you can install the URP package. Get that in your Unity registry. Bring that over, URP, install. Give that a second there to load up. Yeah, everything's being real slow for me now, but there we go.
But see, I'm learning something new. And next time I won't say ERP as in burp, I'll say URP. So there you go.
Can minimize it. Oh, no, I don't think that's what's responsible for slowing me down. I think it's just, it keeps saying that I'm reconnecting or whatnot. But hey, it's good. I'm not gonna complain anymore about that. It's working well now. But yeah, so you would bring in the URP package from the package manager. And then if you had any assets that were using the old shaders, you would just upgrade them. So you've upgraded to pack the URP project. Let's say you had some objects in your scene, so a cube here, and it was using a old material. Let's say this one here, and this material was on that thing, and that material is your old material. Let me pull this up here. Did I get the full package? Universal render pipeline. Scriptable render pipeline. That's looking good. And then if we go to edit project settings, you'll see under graphics what you need is a scriptable render pipeline. So I'm going to create one. Go up to create, and let's go down to, I believe it is under rendering. Yep, rendering. And then you're looking for a pipeline asset. Bam, you probably want to put that in a separate folder. But once you got the rendering pipeline asset, so this one is the one, drag and drop that into there. Bam, you get the appropriate shaders. Your project is now a URP project, and you can now update all of your assets to using URP materials. Bam, you are using URP. That is how you would upgrade your project to URP.
Awesome. Thanks, Ozzy. Thanks,
You're welcome.
Christos. And now we have a question from Ekaterina. What is the easiest way to realize changing scenes in VR? Thank you.
What the easiest way to change scenes would be to write a script like this. Let's just call this scene changer. Ooh, I put a space in that name. That's going to be brutal. Okay. Ignoring the space I accidentally put up there. Or AURP. It's, what do you mean, Carlos? Oh, I see. So I accidentally wrote a little space in the name of this file. You never want to put a space in your file name for a code. So bear with me there. That was brutal. All right, so here we go. Let's just say you have a function. What you need in Unity is using Unity engine dot scene management. That's, you need to include that. And you probably don't want to put this
Looks like Ozzy has left the building. Uh-oh. The bully gang.
come back.
Oh, he's back.
Okay.
Yay.
I don't know how much you missed there, but what I was saying is, I don't know if you want to put this in the start function, wherever you want to put this line of code, that's fine. But there's your Unity engine.scene management library you need to include in your code. And then the scene you want to load, let's just say scene 1. And the mode you want to load it in would be load scene mode.single. That would be the line of code you'd want to run. And that right away would just change your scene. But let's say you wanted it to be based off something else. So public void, and I'll just say scene change is the name of the function. It will load the scene. It might be better for you to say int scene number and put that into here. And that's your nice public function you can call from anywhere to load a scene. And when I say that, I mean you can have that in your scene somewhere. So let's say I put that on a UI canvas. So UI button, I have a UI button. This is, Unity is great for these kinds of things. So I'm just going to split that up. I have a button somewhere in my scene. I'm just going to anchor that to 0 and 0.2. Let's just say that works. Bottom left of my screen, there's a button there. That button has, I'm just going to throw on that scene changer script. The on click has a need for some reference, no function, scene changer, and scene change. And then I can type in, let's say, the number 1. When I click on this button, it will change over to the next scene, which since I don't have another scene, I'm just going to create one real quick. Bam, new scene. I go to File, Build Settings. Build Settings, it has no scene, so I'm going to add my open scene, which is this current scene. I'm going to add the new scene, which is now scene number 1. Bam, I save, I hit play. When I click this button, it'll go over to the next scene. Bam, there it's loaded. Now, if you want to load the scenes really well, what you want to do is use a coroutine maybe, and load objects in your scene one at a time. So the idea behind loading that scene asynchronously would be you have your objects here, you have your objects here, you have a bunch of objects, there's an object here, there's a building here, and the player loads in here. So when you load another scene, these objects are on and they show up right away. And then you load these objects a bit later, and then you load these objects a bit later, just so that it doesn't take a bit long to load up the scene. Friends told me not to make a scene, but it seems that with Unity it's fine. Damn, Carlos, that's good. You should pair up with Nikita for a comedy show. He responded with the script. Okay, so that's how to do that scene thing. But yeah, there's definitely ways to improve how you're going about it. But this is the simplest you can do. Scene management in a script, and that's the load scene code. Hopefully that answers your question.
Awesome. Thanks, Ozzy. If not, if anybody has any follow-up questions, you can just keep putting it in the questions tab. All right, so now we have a question from David. You mentioned URP is more performant than the regular Unity renderer. How much more performant? And are there any benefits to using regular renderer?
So the regular renderer is perhaps just an easier way to deal with a lot of the stuff and easier way to deal with lighting and whatnot. But it is less efficient. And I'd say the difference is about 30%.
Awesome. Thanks, Ozzy.
That's the official statement from Unity as well, I think.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thanks, David. Then we have a question from Sebastian. Would it be possible to adapt the ball respawn script to respawn the pins? If so, how might one go about that in general terms?
Is it possible to adapt the ball respawn script to respawn the pins? So I'm not sure what you mean by respawning the pins, but perhaps, I guess like recentering the pins, I suppose. So in here, we wrote the code for respawning the ball, but perhaps you have a script that has a list here. So let's say I create a new C# script, and this is our pin resetter, let's say. And the way this one works is, let's see, it has, suppose we could do this on each pin or whatnot. The idea would be kind of similar. It would be like you have, let's say, not even needs to be public. It can just be a private variable, private vector 3 that stores the original position. Stores the original position of the thing, and void on trigger enter. What we want to do is we can reset it right away, but that wouldn't really work well. So what you maybe want to do is create an IEnumerator. And this is called delayed reset, perhaps. And so what this function does is it's on trigger enter. That means the ball has been hit, and probably not even use trigger. I would probably use on collision enter. So void on collision entered. So whenever this is hit, what it does is it starts the coroutine listed in delayed reset, like so. And what delay reset does is it says yield, I think it's new wait for, I spelled yield wrong? No. Return new yield, or wait 4 seconds, and then maybe you want to wait 10 seconds before a pin. I can remember the syntax. There it is. So delayed waits for 10 seconds, and then after the 10 seconds, it just says, transform this would be on the pin. Position equals underscore original position. Transform dot rotation equals quaternion. Quaternion is how you measure rotations, but you can also use Euler angles, identity, Euler angles, vector 3.0 would be an alternative. And you'd probably want to say get component rigid body dot velocity equals vector3 dot 0. You'd probably want to do that same thing with the angular velocity. This would be kind of the idea. This would be resetting the pin as soon as it was hit. Spelled that wrong. It's got angular velocity lowercase a. So that this would be kind of how you do it. It says there's an original position, which we don't know. So what we'd want to do is in the start or awake function, we'd want to say m underscore original position equals transform.position. So right away when the application starts, it stores what its original position is in this variable. And then one on collision enter occurs. So that means it's hit by something. It's starting to float away. We start a delayed reset. So after 10 seconds, bam, the position is reset to the original position. Rotation is reset. Velocity and angular velocity are set to 0. So it just, boom, perfectly stays up. Now, you could want to do something like that for all of them at the same time. And so you may want to create a bigger box around all of them. And that bigger box, instead of having just vector3, what it would have is perhaps a private list of vector3. You might want to use an array or whatnot, but this is fine. M underscore origins, let's say, and you'd want to start that off with a new list of vector3s, and you'd want a private, well, you might want a public list, so you put that at the top. Public list of transforms for all of our pins, because you wouldn't be able to refer to just one transform. So we get all those transforms, we reference all of the pins in here. Couldn't you put all the numeric code directly in the on collision enter? Well, you don't have access to this wait function in the on collision enter function. You can't wait in one of those, so you have to use a coroutine or something. So you'd get a list as the alternative in the awake function instead of getting the original position. I'm just going to comment out code we aren't going to use. For this other variation, we would say, for each, so this would be creating a loop var pin in m underscore pins. So for each one of those, we would say, okay, m underscore origins dot add. That would be pin dot position. So we do something like that. So we have a list of pins, a list of positions. We'd store all of the pin positions in a list of vector3s. So that stores X, Y, Z values. And then on, maybe not in an on collision enter necessarily, but something like that, on collision enter in like a big box. But in this case, it would probably become a on trigger enter function for some box that sees that, okay, yeah, you did hit something on trigger enter. We would call a variation of this. So this would no longer be used. Move this code over here after this. And let's just comment that block out. So on trigger enter, we would say similar idea though. What we would do is in here, we would say start coroutine when thing hits you, but this time we'd want to check that the coroutine is hit by, the ball is probably what you want to do for that too. But here, transform.position, we're referring to each thing there, but instead what we'd want to do is we'd create a for each loop var pin in m underscore pins, and what we want to say is like, I don't know, want to create a for loop. For int I equals 0, and I is less than m underscore pins dot count minus 1, and then I plus plus. So you create this kind of loop here, and you would say, m underscore pins in I dot position equals underscore origins I, that kind of thing. So you'd create this loop that goes through all of the pins, sets their positions to the origin position, and essentially sets all of their rotations to that. And miswritten, but it's all of the pins components to that as well. And I think this wasn't meant to reference transform. This should have referenced the other thing, but that's kind of the idea. So you'd go through, and after a bit, delayed reset occurs on trigger enter. When the player ball enters, you just go through, wait a bit, and then bam, go through the list, set all the pins. Using no need for the -1 if you, since you're using, okay, there's some bit of logic in terms of less than. So the pin dot count 10. Yeah, I suppose you're right then. As long as it's less. This is a pre-process. Okay, yeah, so this is a post-processor. I think you can get away with that then. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. Sorry, I'm trying to answer these as quickly as possible. I want to get to as many as I can.
No, that's great. I'm sure they're appreciating your really thorough answers. Great. Thanks, Ozzy. And thanks, Sebastian. Now we have question by Jordan. Have you worked on any released games?
So I wouldn't say they're not released, but they're meant for like corporations. So I don't really get to put them out onto like the asset stores or whatnot. But one that I am working on is Rifts of Eudora. And I'm going to start working on some more mobile apps recently because I started to get a bit more free time lately. So in the chat, I'll drop a link to that.
Oh, nice. I see you already have some fans. So
sorry, one sec. I'm once again getting slow here. There we go. Yeah, so there's a link there. Thank you, Sebastian. Too nice.
And you have a manager already, Ozzy.
But
Carlos.
there's a app on the BlackBerry app World or something called Drum Novem. Made that one a long time ago, and they gave me a free tablet for that. And then there's the Roll and Bound. Which, it was a quick project I made in about a day to test out the whole process of releasing onto the store. So those are a couple of examples. All right, what was the next question?
Awesome. Also, I think same Jordan. What's your favorite VR game?
My favorite VR game. It's a combination. It's a tough question for me, but it's probably between Pavlov, Beat Saber, and VR Tilt Brush. So these three are my top. There's some great experiences other than those, but yeah.
Awesome. Now a question from Jacob. Would it be recommended for someone who just finished the XR development course to immediately take the XR accelerator course?
Yeah, I don't see why not. That would be great.
Yeah, it's a good follow. It's a good course to follow after that one.
There's also a design course. I think that would be even better to go to first.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have an idea in mind, the accelerator course is the place to be. If you really have an idea you want to work on, the accelerator course is great.
Mm-hmm. If any of you are current students, oh, sorry. Oh, you're just reading the chat. If any of you are current students, this Friday, we are going to do a kind of first pilot demo day. Right now, it's just for the Circuit Stream community, but in the future, we are going to be opening it up to the public. And then everybody will be able to see kind of the projects that the students from the Accelerator cohort work on, the XR development course work on, the design course work on. So definitely stay tuned for that. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. Cool. Another question from Jacob. How long did it take for you to get comfortable using Unity with the keyboard shortcuts and being good at it?
I think I'm always improving on that. So, but in terms of immediately, like the first time I got into Unity, I was in high school, like was that junior high or high school, something like that. And so I was just like, okay, this is frustrating. Navigating this dang thing. All right, I am spending a solid 30 minutes just doing that. I put a cube in my scene. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna fly around this thing. This is all I'm doing for the next 30 minutes until I'm comfortable. And then that was it. That was a very frustrating part of going through developing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to be really comfortable with it. So all the navigation stuff, you can get past that and it stops being a hurdle.
Awesome. I feel like that's a pretty popular question. People would like to know when they can be experts, be comfortable. Now a question from Francisco. XR rig can be used with Unity ML API.
I think this is the multiplayer API this is like brand new too. So this ML API, I'm pretty sure, is the multiplayer networking solution that Unity is coming out with themselves. It's in beta right now. And I think technically you could support the XR rig with it. You would just need to communicate the positions of the controllers to the network as well. Okay, but I think there's easier ways to do that. Like there's transform scripts available in those systems typically, and so you can just slap those onto each controller and onto each head, and that would communicate to everyone which, where the VR player's body parts are.
Awesome. So Omar said we could skip our XR rig question, so I'll go to the next one. Interaction manager is the equivalent to the event manager in a regular 2D or 3D project?
No, I wouldn't say that. The event manager is generally just for the UI elements, but interaction manager, I guess kind of it is, but I wouldn't say it's exactly the same. There's definitely a lot of extra things that the interaction manager does.
Awesome. So I think that's all of our questions. If anybody has, yeah, yes, let's give Ozzy another round of applause. Send your emojis. Yes, thanks you so much, Ozzy, and thanks so much to everybody for coming. For stirring the great conversation. We'll continue our is it Z or Z convos in our next workshops. We always post them on our website, but definitely sign up. Carlos is like, Z. No, it's Z. Very cool, and I learned more than my uni lectures teach me. Awesome. That's what we're here for. And definitely sign up for the open house if you haven't yet, and contact us on Slack. We can continue the conversations there.
Oh, as a side note, if you do get into the course and whatnot, we have office hours either every Monday or every Tuesday, and you get access to those even after you graduate. So it's a great resource to have.
Yes, 2 office hours for kind of technical questions. You always get an instructor. Right now it's Ozzy and then also Cash. One in the morning, one in the afternoon, PST time. And then also we have events like social time. So every Monday I host virtual coffee hour at 12 p.m. And that's just kind of like to chill, talk about XR, talk about life. This week we talked about movies and the Oscars. So there you go. Lots of events to continue interacting with everybody. All right. Thank you again to everybody for coming. Jacob has, do we have time for one last question?
Yeah, I have some time.
Okay, you thought you were done, Ozzy, but not quite. Okay, RQ, besides you guys, where can we get updates on VR and tech Oculus related news if you know?
Well, there is like, what was it? The Verge, I think. But you can definitely listen to the news from Oculus and from HTC and Steam. There's going to be great resources to find out about news, but let me pull up that channel here one sec. Just to listen to this one VR news channel. Matteo. So there's a few different places to go, but Valem is great for tutorials. Check out Valem. VR with Andrew is also great. And what was the other one?
Is Brackeys also? I guess it's more
Brackeys
tutorial.
is actually retired, so I don't think you'll get any newer information from Brackeys anytime soon. But,
Charles is saying VR with Lucy. I don't know how helpful I'll be for.
And then there's probably Thrill Seeker, the YouTube channels, and I think Matthew was one. Yeah, I think some of these people would be good places to check out.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's a sad thing that he retired. What can you do though?
Oh, there's a question for me. Look at that. David is asking, Lucy, have you done the Unity course? Have you made any little games yet? I haven't. I'm really fresh in this world. And right now I'm acting as student experience coordinator. I know, zero about programming, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe in the future. And then I'll launch some games as well in 10 years or something. Awesome. Oh, I'd make some kind of dancing game. Yes, I would. Or, maybe like a Disney. Are there any Disney VR games? Like Pixar?
I don't know. I've been so into the whole VR training thing recently, so
right.
I don't even pay attention anymore, I guess.
That's heavily licensed. That would be a mission for you guys to discover. They like to do the voices, like the different Pixar voices. I like doing that. So
the
there you
thing
go.
is, if you guys can get away with grabbing a license from one of those games, you could just show off that, hey, I have capabilities to do these kinds of things, and then grab one of those licenses, you're guaranteed to make a popular game. Like Pokemon Go, they got Pokemon's licensing, and bam, that game was so popular, even though they made an exact version of that game prior to Pokemon Go without the same licensing. So yeah. It's a huge boost.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my for the call from the call from Disney anytime now. So I'll give you guys updates in virtual coffee hour. There you go. All right, everybody. So we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks again for coming. Let's continue the conversation on Slack. Thanks to Ozzy, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye, Ozzy. Bye, everybody.
Take care, Luciana. Take care, everyone. Thank you for coming.